Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the SimNFL show. Real talk about fake sports. I am your host and commissioner. You can call me Pierce. Today, I'm joined by a very special co-host.
Yeah, hey, it's Sarge. I am the owner and head coach of the Carolina Panthers and the coach for the Georgia Bulldogs.
Thanks for coming on board, man. So today we are having our first episode of the 2026 season. The season has turned over and the off season is underway. All of this, of course, going on over at SimSN. If you're unfamiliar, come check us out on the website and on Discord. We would love to have you. So there's only 2 bullet points today, but there's a lot to cover in those two. We're going to be going over a bunch of the big trades that have happened since trading opened at the beginning of the season. Not every single trade. Otherwise we'd be here all night. But as of this recording, the biggest ones that have gone forward, Sarge and I will talk about them in particular. I'm interested to hear his thoughts about Carolina's trades. And then we were going to look at a couple of the Pro Day results, which came out on Friday. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. So this very first trade was something that was actually agreed to in principle at the end of last season, which is, Commissioner, is not something I officially condone, but generally I do allow people to talk about, where Cincinnati moved both of their veteran wide receivers, Madruga and Campaverde, to Jacksonville, giving Max Howard, some new weapons, getting back a former first-round pick in Ryan Dunn, who was drafted by the Rams and moved to Jacksonville and now Cincinnati. Also, the Jacksonville's first and third this year and a fourth-round pick next year. Cincinnati selling early, storing up picks. Jacksonville getting some weapons for Howard. I don't know, Sarge, anytime you want to jump in, your take on Cincinnati moving both of their top receivers at the top of the
Yeah,
year.
I think this is going to be a recurring theme throughout this draft, or not draft, but trade recap, with Cincinnati kind of shuffling assets, really trying to salvage their cap, is what a lot of their moves consist of in order to get the rebuild, more or less a jump start, and essentially getting a tackle like Ryan Dunn, who's young and still got his prime ahead of him, coupled with a couple early rounders. You can't really go wrong with that. I wish that they would have tried to squeeze out a little bit more value out of, quite honestly, a number one wideout in Madruga, and a very solid number two for most teams, maybe a number one in Campo Verde. But all in all, I still think it's a great pickup for Cincinnati and gives Howard some weapons in Jacksonville.
Yeah. Importantly, for cap ramifications, both Madruga and Campaverde have multiple years left, so Jacksonville's going to get a good deal on both. Madruga's got 3 years left, 3.2, then 4.2, 4.2 salary wise. Campaverde 2 years, $4 million each. So Jacksonville's going to get multiple years out of these guys off this deal, which makes it very good for them. Cincinnati now wide receiver core: Charles Aarons, a 72 overall prime age guy. Kyle Grant, 64-24, A plus potential, and another guy, Jose Jones, which they will add in a later trade. But Bengals weren't done. They had 10 and then obtained 19 from that trade, and they packaged both of those to move up to 5th overall, moving their lower two first to the Jets, also turning their 4th rounder into a 3rd rounder, and then getting a 3rd rounder next year as well. This one surprised me mostly because it came before scouting was open. So whatever Cincinnati saw, I think this actually might have even been pre-draft book. That one I'm not sure about, but definitely pre-scouting. So Cincinnati must have liked something about someone who was coming out of the class to move up blind to top 5.
That, and I think it gives them a uh, kind of like a tighter shot group, if you will, where they don't have to throw as many darts at the board,
Hmm.
and kind of still keeps them out of cap trouble too, right? Trading two firsts to move up kind
Hmm.
of helps protect their cap in this situation, and just spending that one high number one. Or number five pick in the first, and really get after a guy that they can almost essentially guarantee is going to be there to help their roster.
Hmm. Um, do you think QB is in the mix for them?
Uh, that's a tough question because I think, if I'm not mistaken, they just extended their QB, or if not, I think he has like 3 or 4 years left on his current deal.
Hmm.
When I was looking at their roster during trade talks, so I mean, it could be, or there could be just an electric playmaker that they can take early to pair with that quarterback, so that they have a duo for the long term. Um, they would have to be somebody incredibly impressive in order to go QB, I think, at number 5 for Cincinnati. But knowing Azako enough as I do, I think he might try to like retool, maybe work from the inside at the lines between the trenches out, and work backwards from there.
Yeah. All right. And then the Jets were not done, having turned their fifth overall into 10 and 19. Then they moved 10 to Dallas, going down to 22nd overall, and picked up Jesse Knoll, who is still 81 overall despite regressing last year. He's 33 years old. So the Jets go down 12 spots. They go up around in one of their later picks, 71 up to 61, and send an additional third next year for Knoll.
Yeah, I mean, I think with this one, I might be completely way off base here, but I see some sort of finesse where Dallas bundles some picks and tries to jump up a little higher, leveraging this number 10 pick to get a Jesse Knoll replacement.
Hmm.
Um, I otherwise I don't see the logic in moving Jesse Knoll, um, especially with Chop, who the Chop trade that's not going to get covered in this show, but with the Chop trade being off the table and Dallas not having necessarily an heir apparent ready,
Mm-hmm.
I could really see Dallas trying to leverage that number 10 pick to try and get a little bit closer with this QB class that's coming in, which is incredible.
Yeah, it's a strong class, and I think there are a lot, or at least multiple teams with high picks or moving into that top 10 that could be looking for it. I think those first 10 picks could be very, very interesting, especially if Dallas is also in the mix, in addition to San Francisco at 1, and then some of the other teams we're looking at. But yeah, Jets having very little capital with that number 5 overall, and now they have 19, 22, 61, and 62. So 4 picks in the first 2 rounds this year.
That is a tremendous job by their GM for sure.
Yeah, yeah, turning that into quite a haul, and then grabbing a bridge quarterback as well. Then we've got Jacksonville again acquiring weapons for Howard, picking up Jamie Perez and moving a second round pick and a fourth next year, as well as a former first rounder in Ray Thompson, who's a 72 overall, moving to rival Tennessee. So we have a little trade test going on here, picking up Perez to go with Madruga and Campaverde.
Yeah,
Does this
I
pick?
don't hate this trade.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't hate this trade. Ray going back to Tennessee, which, if I'm not mistaken, he was an alumni from. Uh,
Hmm.
in the Titans, in my opinion, taxing that Jacksonville ass for a trade cest with a still decently young receiver that's got a couple years to grow in a second round and a fourth. I think Tennessee, quite honestly, just won this trade outright, but can't blame Jacksonville for paying a little bit extra to get Howard weapons.
Yeah, it just extended Howard, so it seems like they are all in on him and really trying to. They really believe in him and trying to give him weapons to make that offense work. So Jacksonville now has the first 2 days off of the draft. I believe currently their first pick now is in the 5th round for 2026. So Jacksonville not afraid to move some assets to bring in some veteran talent. Miami had a couple of veteran acquisitions as their championship window is open, and they are kind of all in on the current year. First, picking up Pro Bowler Jose Sola from Tennessee, moving a younger Robinson Terrell, and then a third this year, a low third, and then a sixth next year, to pick up Sola for what I believe it was a full bonus contract. So he's going to be on just like bare minimum salary for Miami. But that's it for his current contract, and then he'll be 31, and either a free agent or Miami's got to figure out how to pay him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the home run swing here at all, as a team in a similar position, but it just as soon as Tennessee wins the previous trade, I feel like they get hosed a little bit on this one. Um, Robinson Terrell's got some massive shoes to fill,
Mm,
and need to develop ASAP if they're gonna look anything like Sola in the near future. I mean, the dude's just a hoss and really shores up that Miami line, where the defense for Miami was a significant weakness come playoff time. The offense obviously firing in all cylinders, but yeah, Miami plays it smart, gets a dude to fill a weakness, and gets away with not sacrificing as much, which is a colossal job by their team for sure.
hmm Agreed. And they weren't done. They went to Kansas City, picked up William Redmond, who's an 85 overall strong safety. Um, and they're handing Kansas City a fifth this year, a third next year, and a young Josh Harris, and then kind of a mid-tier William Alexander to replace a strong safety. Um, Redmond's got 2 years left on his deal, $6.5 million of salary. Um, but yeah, I think huge value here for Miami getting a starter for a couple years for relatively little in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, look, everybody's gonna hose me for how salty I was with this trade, mainly because we were on the other side, with Kansas City, in a bidding war we didn't know we were a part of, truthfully. Um, but I mean, we Redmond's the premier talent in the league at strong safety, and I think it's unquestioned. Um, what he's going to add to any team. Kansas City receiving a fifth and a third, and an aging strong safety. Really, the only true addition out of this trade is a young guard and Josh Harris. Um, but yeah, this was a colossal win again for Miami in this trade, and I think they absolutely crushed it and really have a great opportunity to assert themselves as the front runner in the AFC, even before we get into draft day, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and Harris was a UDFA pickup for them, so not even
Yeah.
a draft pick.
Oh, that
So
makes me sick.
just to turn the screw a little bit further for you.
Yeah.
Then KC, another interesting trade, went up from 12 to 7, throwing in a third this year and a fifth next year to bump up into the top 10. Not much to say here. Again, before scouting even opened, moving up to the top 10, so something in the draft book they must have seen or just want to have a better shot at a superstar.
I find this just a little bit interesting because the Bears were talking about wanting to move up further in the draft, and end up moving back with this KC trade, but obviously getting some assets along the way to help retool. But just as an overall note, I think it's wildly interesting that a lot of teams are aggressively moving up in this draft, whereas historically, that hasn't really been a common theme.
Mm.
Trading down the last 2 to 3 years has seemed to be brought with a lot of heartache, where there's not a lot of buyers out there. But it looks like if you want to trade down this year, now is the time to do it, apparently.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. I feel like in the actual NFL, you'll see big moves up into the top 10, um, or teams the impetus being to move up to get your guy, um, and not necessarily the same thing in the sim. All right, and I called this return of the mega trade because we've got 12, literally a dozen assets, 9 or 8 players. Carolina receiving 5 veterans, namely Raul Hallett, star center, 87 overall, and then sending some younger players to Cincinnati and 3 picks, but all of them in future years. So you actually end this trade with more draft capital in the current year than you started, um, and the first to move a 2028 pick. So yeah, if you want to walk us through your thoughts on this.
Yeah. So First of all, this was a colossal team effort with the GM of the year, Lord Jambo. Um, the skinny of it is Cincinnati, just quite honestly had to shed some cap to accommodate all their picks, and which is why we offered a lot of future assets for them as well to give them some room to maneuver this year. In this trade, they clear about, I wanted to say it was about 12 to 13 million in cap,
Hmm.
uh, and we remedy that strong safety position that we had a colossal hole in with our Pro Bowl safety retiring this year, with Brian Johnson, who has 2 years left on his contract. And then we get Hallett was the big piece for this trade to add more protection on the line, who will end up playing guard for us. Otherwise, Pedraza, Lai, and Bensman, really just depth pieces that were costing Cincinnati quite a bit of cap. And we move the young Jose Jones, who doesn't cost much for them. Same with Jovel and Nice, in order to make sure that they have room to maneuver with all their picks, and really rebuild that roster. So, just from our perspective, as lopsided as this looks, I think people need to pay attention to what Cincinnati's saving in cap, and in addition to the assets that they're acquiring.
Yeah. I think you see very, as you say, very active in managing that cap situation, especially after what happened last year and losing picks to get things moved around, and this year being able to offload a bunch of stuff, shore up late picks, and then start that build up again. All right, and then this thing I'm still winding my brain around, a deal where Carter moves in division from the Chargers to the Chiefs. Chiefs also get, well, they move down from Denver's first to take Houston's second next year. The Chargers get a second, and then Houston gets the upgrade of that 2027 pick, and then a handful of low 26 picks. Um, so yeah, I'm not sure how Houston was the linchpin to get these other two to move, but that is how they reported it as going.
Whatever it was that Houston did, I think they far and away uh, win this trade just from a pick value perspective, because um, you getting a one to in order to move in one of the upcoming trades that they end up doing in a 4.57 for an aging running back to move somewhere. I don't know. I still don't understand the context behind this trade, and I'm definitely gonna have to ask Lied, Dean, and Nuke Bomb respectively on how this all shook out, because you don't commonly see 3-team trades.
No. Yeah, so I'm interested to hear more of the context as well, to figure out how that all came to pass and how they found each other and worked out these details, because it is oddly fascinating. Um, and then you guys on the move again after. Now it's interesting. You said Hallett's going to play guard for you. I assumed he was going to play center, and that's why you were ready to move Shazier. But first, we'll get into the details, which is you moving former number 3 overall pick Shazier for a couple of firsts, 13 this year, and then Denver's first next year, and then an additional third next year as well.
Yeah. So ultimately, with our scheme change going forward, Shazier is kind of the odd man out, because we're going to put the offense fully on Link this year, no bones about it. And so, with Shazier being a run blocking guard and center,
Mm-hmm.
he was just the odd man out, quite frankly. And with Houston being a run focused team, with Nebel and Ryan Johnson, it was kind of a no brainer trade for both sides. Shazier's just going to continue to be a monster. He was one of the top draft picks, arguably the best player on the board, when we took him at number 3. And Houston has a phenomenal. I don't know if people have looked at it, but their offensive line is phenomenal for Ryan Johnson to run behind and
Yeah.
Neville to get started. And then we end up getting that 27 Denver first from the previous trade, in their first rounder. this year to kind of give us some flexibility. And then Rodgers got shot into the sun in a kicker swap because of that missed 27-yard field goal that still burns Jambo to this day.
So yeah, so Houston now has a former number one overall pick in Raider at tackle, and now a former number three overall at center. Plus the guy they just drafted, I think number three overall last year, right at tackle.
Yeah,
So
their offensive line is incredibly intimidating, and in how young it is too.
yeah, that's
Uh,
three top five picks. That's wild.
I arguably think they're going to be a tough team, and would not be surprised if they're like a fringe playoff team next year.
It's going to be interesting. Yeah, Houston running and now Jacksonville passing. It's going to be interesting to see what those offenses look like.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
All right. I actually did manage to slip this one in under the radar. I think this is one of the last ones I got in, where Baltimore did move David Chop. Um, their new GM pulled off a trade, getting a fifth and seventh this year, a 2027 second, originally from Houston, moving their star UDFA running back, Ariel Lemon Jr., and then an outside linebacker as well, packaging all that together. The Chiefs packaging all that together to go to the Ravens to have Chop move on. So they're going to pay him $18.5 million in salary in this final year of his contract, and then they'll have to figure out what to go from there.
Yeah, teams are getting away with murder with these UDFA dudes getting traded. First of all, and I'm curious to see what Nuke does with getting a David Chop type player at quarterback. The 90 overall, where it seems that KC is trying to rebuild at the same time. Whereas Baltimore also clearly indicating they're hitting the reset button by shipping their franchise quarterback away. Yeah, I'm curious to see how this shakes out for both teams. Talking to some of the Ravens guys earlier in the week, I do think that they might go in the direction of a retool instead of a rebuild.
Hmm.
But they might have to figure out something at that quarterback option and very soon.
Yeah. Yeah, QQ had his moments, but I don't know about putting the franchise in his hands.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, a flurry of activity, and again, that doesn't even cover all the trades. That doesn't even cover the trades that went through today, as of this recording, which will have to be bumped to next week. We will get there. Um, but the other thing we wanted to talk about today was Pro Days, which came out on last Friday. And so I wanted to do a quick up and down of some players that I think really helped their draft stock, and some players that might have hurt theirs. Obviously, combines did come out today. We don't have time to cover those. Those will be next week as well. And those tend to be a little bit more accurate in general. But I did want to focus on the release of the Pro Days and what athletes I really thought benefited from that. So on the gain side, I broke that up into a couple of really highly rated athletes that I thought continue to separate themselves from the pack, and then a couple of lower names or lower grades that performed really well. And all this is public information. Anyone that can sort an Excel sheet can find this kind of stuff. So if there's a C overall guy that you viewer thought was like a big secret, no, it wasn't. Everybody knows. Um, Arden Ejiofor. That is all I will say to you. Arden Ejiofor.
And there goes my draft.
Everybody's secret pick who went number two overall and kicked everything off. Anyway, if you know, you know. So three guys that I thought really helped their stop. Travis Kingery came in draft book A plus, but of course the attention's on guys like Savage and Oliveros. But perfect accuracy, perfect distance score, it's just a perfect pro day performance from the Bowling Green Star. I thought really helped kind of cement himself as a guy to be taken seriously in this QB race. Colorado's cornerback Jeremy Cabral. It's not Jeremy. I did check. Jeremy. Perfect zone cover score. again, great for an A-plus corner, but specifically for nope, a ball hawk archetype, not a zone archetype. So I think to get a perfect zone, any perfect cover score as a ball hawk, even as an A-plus rated, is a pretty cool thing. And then Pitt's wide receiver Willie Parms, again, can't do much better than perfect catching and perfect route running scores. So even as an A overall, I think that's a big boost for him. And then on the lower graded side, Tavares Washington. Now, I don't know about any of you viewers, but when I saw C plus next to Washington's name, I thought, okay, but seriously, does anyone actually believe that? And sure enough, he comes out in the pro day, 9.5 accurate, top 5 pro day accuracy score, top 10 distance score. Um, uh, a name that I thought didn't match the grade, and I think his pro day performance may have confirmed that for some people. Certainly did for me. Um, One name that was not on my radar quarterback wise was Arizona's Carlos Whedon, who was 8.75 accurate and then tied for top 5 in throw power. So huge performance from him. And then Dario Lindsay is another name I'm familiar with. Another big name with a low grade, but that showed up on his Ball State Pro Day. Top 5 catching score, 6th overall route running score. Just a big performance that I think is going to have him shooting up people's draft charts. Sarge, I don't know if you have any other names that stuck out to you from Pro Day or any other observations on the positive side you wanted to share.
Nothing in particular that not a lot of folks already know. I will say that this quarterback class, it, I think some teams trading up trying to get their guy are gonna find out. Um, Probably waiting for these pro days and combines before doing that trade up would be imperative because this quarterback class looks deeper than I feel like we've had in a very, very long time for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I think if this were the NFL, this would be like a one of those like 3 in the top 10, maybe even 3 in the top 5 or 6, just because of how much teams are
Yeah.
willing to push. So probably not that in the sim, but I do think in terms of at least a first round grade. Whereas last year, I think the more things looked, the more names started to come off of that list. I feel like this year we have a couple, and then we're starting to add more. Um, so I'm sure it'll be an unknown till it actually happens. But yeah, a lot with Kingery and Washington, these other guys really showing up on pro days. It adds a lot of drama to what is already a very interesting storyline. And on the other side of things, some guys that did not do themselves any favors in the pro day. First, I got to call out Nebraska guard DJ Acosta. Um, is a overall guard balance type who couldn't break the top 15 in either of his blocking scores. Not a great showing from a guy who's near the top of the draft book in terms of guards. Um, Rogers of Western Michigan, similarly in a very strong tackle class this year. His run blocking score was so low, I didn't even count the number of people who were ahead of him. I just went from the bottom and started counting, and I got to 2. 5.76 was the second worst run blocking score of any tackle who had a pro day. And then his passing was 16th, which is better, but he's a pass blocking archetype. That's what he's supposed to do, and he did it okay. And then Randy Romero, we talked about quarterbacks helping their cause. He's a B plus grade, 24th in accuracy, 22nd in distance. Is not the way to make your dreams come true. Um, so does not look like he is joining the realm of first round quarterbacks anytime soon.
No, not with that noodle arm.
No. Additionally, Kansas State wideout Ekram Howard. Again, counting from the bottom, no wide receiver had a worse catching pro day than he did at 5.88, and his route running score was worse at 5.85. somehow only the second worst score of the wide receiver field, but still, for a guy listed as B plus, that has fraud written all over it now after that performance. And then two defensive tackles, Sanchez and Fuller. You might look at those ordinals and be like, okay, fifth and sixth, 10th, 14th, not terrible. Keep in mind, only 17 defensive tackles had pro days. It was not a particularly popular position to be chosen. So when Doran Fuller is the 14th best pro day for defensive tackles and run stop, that's out of 17. That's not good. In particular, Sanchez and Fuller are the only two A minus defensive tackles in the book, and the only guy above them is Caleb Ryder, who is like, I had him as a first round talent last year when I thought he was going to early declare, and then he didn't. He came back to, I think, Oklahoma State for his redshirt senior season. So you have this A plus absolute phenom, and the next two guys on the list are Sanchez and Fuller, who do this on their pro days. So if you were looking for a defensive tackle in the draft, I hope there's a gem down there for you, because right now it's Ryder or bust, based on this. I don't know. Any other numbers that jumped out to you from the pro day, or any other thoughts on any of these guys and what their chances are like with the combine?
Uh, I mean, I do think that um, it this particular class, like we've kind of gone in waves, so maybe not necessarily specifically this draft batch, but we go in waves where like DT was like a phenomenal class a couple drafts ago. O line, I want to say last year, the year before last, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
Wide receivers had a significant run recently, so I mean we do kind of go in waves.
Mm-hmm.
What I'd be interested to see is the premium that's put on the safety position and the linebacker position.
Mm-hmm.
And just because of how shorthanded that talent is across both sims, realistically, between college and NFL, it's always a knife fight to get a top of the line linebacker or a top of the line safety in recruiting, as these coaches find out. And then when it comes draft day, like you might have maybe two guys that are draftable at the safety position before you start taking flyers in the fifth and sixth round on dudes that might, be something or not anything at all.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see what the value, how people value those positions, and if we see some guys go earlier than normal, and with the influence of the quarterback needy teams too, I think we're going to see some significant talent fall down boards quickly in the first and second round.
Yeah. Tight end is another one of those that you might have one or two
Yeah.
stars. And I know there's something to like tight end and linebackers, how like their overall formula like has a lot of different inputs because they can do a lot of different things, and so it's hard for them to like get a super high grade. But even with that caveat, you see a couple of guys that everyone's going to go for, and then it's kind of barren. Which at least in terms of tight end also shows up in like the trade market, that teams that want a tight end look at the draft and are like, okay, maybe I can spend some picks to bring in a veteran if it doesn't look like I'm going to get a chance to develop a guy within the next year or two. Um, so uh, yeah. Oh, and then safety can be hard because strong safeties in our sim can be absolute stat monsters, and then free safeties, especially pass defenders, if they don't get a lot of picks, it can be really hard to see. Um, at least on a stats page, it can be hard to see that input um, based on what shows up in the play by play. Yeah. So as I said, pro days out Friday, combines are out as of this video, and will be covered in next week's episode. So next week, more trades, trades upon trades upon trades. There are already trades in the queue um, for next week's episode that have happened today. We'll also have our first free agency results. So I think tomorrow, or well, today when this video airs, Tuesday, will be the first free agency sync. A reminder, those are going to be daily syncs going forward. And then after 3 days of not receiving new offers players are going to sign. There's no negotiating stage anymore. So that's been retooled. But next week we should have our first free agency results, and we can look at who's going where and for how much. And then, of course, the combine will have all of that broken down in details. And again, look at whose stock went up or down and get a further idea of what some of these big positions look like, both the deep ones like quarterback, offensive tackle, and also the thin ones like tight end, like linebacker, like safety. Start to kind of crystallize those numbers a little bit. So yeah, lots to cover. Hope you'll come back next week and join us. But that is all I have for this episode of the SimNFL show. Sarge, thank you for joining us again. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
No thoughts other than shout out Jambo and go Panthers.
Well, thanks again for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. Fun to talk to you. And I will sign off the way I sign off every episode by saying to all of our users in all of our sims, good luck and have fun.